Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to Estonia once again for the first time in a good little while actually, and we're going to go back to a brewery who you've seen me review a good number of beers from before. This is review number 9 or so involving this brewery if memory serves me correctly, and I've had some very good beers from them in the past, and this is a sub-style that I've been very much enjoying over the last year, 18 months or so on the back of some of the Swedish ones that I had in this style bracket. So yeah, curious to see how this one turns out, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So for this review then, we are going to go to the southeast of the country, to Tartu, the second city, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Puhäste Pruulikoda. I think this is review number 9 or so involving this brewery if memory serves me correctly. So this particular beer is called the Tumeaine Kenya. It comes in at 11% ABV, and this one is an Imperial Coffee Stout. So as I've told you before, when it comes to coffee beans, I think these are one of the most interesting adjuncts that you can put in beer, because the coffee bean is so complex on its own that it can just add some really interesting depth to these big dark Imperial craft beers. I think it's one of my favourite things to put in beer actually. I don't drink coffee normally. I've never been a coffee drinker, but I think, putting coffee beans and stuff into these big Imperial Stouts, it's one of the best things you can do as a craft brewer in my opinion. But yeah, my whole love of coffee stouts began on the back of the Key and the Sidamo Dimtu from Brewery in Gothenburg on the west coast of Sweden, and then of course I started trying ones from other breweries, and we know that Puhäste Pruulikoda are one of the most capable breweries in Estonia, and they do some very interesting dark beers as well. So very curious to see how this one turns out. Nice to return to Puhäste Pruulikoda once again after a little while, and as I said, this is review number 9 or so that I've done from these guys. So fingers crossed it's going to be a good beer. I know this brewery, so I'm pretty confident that it will be, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. Definitely nice to review another Estonian beer for you here on the channel, and you can look forward to many more Estonian reviews over the next little while. I brought back quite a lot of Estonian beer with me from my recent trip over there, so you can look forward to those. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. An 11% Imperial Coffee Stout brewed in collaboration with Kokomo Coffee Roasters from Tallinn, and it uses, for those of you who want to know at the moment, it uses the Kenyan Zawadi Peaberry coffee bean variety. So yeah, let's go for it then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Puhäste Pruulikoda before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Estonian beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very regularly at the moment because of all the Estonian beers I brought back with me, and fingers crossed we can make that regular over the next little while. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Puhäste Pruulikoda then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've mentioned to you before, Puhäste Pruulikoda are based in Tartu in southeastern Estonia, the second city and home to the country's oldest university. It's a very pretty place actually, and I do recommend that you go and visit it if you get the chance. But the company was founded back in 2016 by Aroma, Lauri Eideman and Ular Kaljurand. So Lauri comes from a background in IT, while Ular is a businessman that specialised in the restaurant and bar trade, while Eero was apparently a home brewer, and he was quite into DJing, and he was also studying theology from what I understand as well. But he started homebrewing back in around 2011 when he brewed at his summer house in Pusa, which is where this brewery takes its name from of course, and he released his first commercial beers in 2014 under the name Blessed Virgin, which was a kind of ode to his theology studies. But these beers proved to be very successful, and then he met the other guys who really helped him get the kind of business side of the company off the ground. But they started off as a gypsy brewery, and they brewed in various other breweries around Estonia, namely up in Tallinn, before they decided in 2015 that they were going to set up their own brewery. So they opened this brewery in September of 2016, which can be found on Tate Street in the southeast of the city. This is a former industrial laundry facility from what I understand, and they've had to expand this facility quite a few times actually. They've had to increase their fermentation capacity quite dramatically because of the demand for their beers, and these days they're producing in the region of 3,500 hectolitres of beer per year. But they've also got the Kelder bar in the city as well, and they've got I think sometimes they do little mini tap rooms at the brewery and stuff like this too. And as of October 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 160 different kinds of beer. So they are pretty prolific. If you think about that this brewery's been in operation fully for around 4 years, I think that is you know, pretty impressive actually. So yeah, I think that, you know, that gives you a return of somewhere in the region, should we say, about 40 beers per year, so maybe one beer roughly every 2 weeks or something like that. So yeah, that is pretty damn impressive actually. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about the history of Puhäste Pruulikoda for the moment. If you want to hear a little bit more of a kind of in-depth history, or if you want to listen to you can listen to my interview that I did with Aroma in the Meet the Brewery segment. You'll find the link to that. You can find the playlist, the Meet the Brewery segment playlist, in the channel homepage, so I would recommend that you go and check that out. Aero is a very, very nice guy, and he actually gave me this beer to review for you guys here on the channel actually. So again, massive shout out to Aero for making this review possible. That was pretty awesome. He gave me this one along with another regular beer and a couple of beers from the Silver Series as well, and you will see the Silver Series ones reviewed at a later date actually. This is the last of the kind of normal regular series beers that he gave me. But very, very nice guy, and he talks in that interview a little bit more about his background, his home brewing background, his favourite styles and stuff like that. So I do recommend that you check that out actually. The Meet the Brewery segment has been very, very fun to film, and of course I did one with Pühaste Pruulikoda as well, with Ian Parrell, which was really good fun, and also Chris Pilkington too. So you can check that out. We've got the two most established, I guess you could say, or two of the most established Estonian craft breweries done on that so far, and I'm sure we'll be back in Estonia at some point and be able to do more of these. But yeah, as I say, that's all I can tell you about Puhäste Pruulikoda for the moment. If you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website. You can have a look at that interview with Aero, as I mentioned earlier, the Meet the Brewery segment. You can also check out my out and about video that I filmed at the Pühaste Kelder. You can check out their different social media streams. They're on Facebook and Instagram. That will keep you up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beer varieties that these guys have done. As I said, 160 different beers, and this is my 9th review involving this brewery, if memory serves correctly. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. As you can see, the artwork on this is very, very nice. There you can see the Milky Way on the background there, so I think I probably will be keeping the artwork on this one. I love my kind of space themed I love my kind of space themed artworks, and you know, Puhäste have some very, very nice ones. It says on the side here, a special version of Tumeaine made in collaboration with Kokomo Coffee Roasters, who, as I said earlier, are from Tallinn, the capital city of Estonia, and it says the coffee variety used is the Kenya Zawadi Peaberry. So yeah, as I've told you before, coffee, it can add some really, really ridiculous complexity to beer. There you can see the lovely Puhäste bottle cap on this one. But yeah, when it comes to coffee, it really depends on the altitude that it's grown at. They call it the mazel, the meters above sea level. And the higher you grow coffee, basically, the more kind of fruity flavours you can get, the more floral flavours, and all of these kind of things. You know, coffee changes quite dramatically depending on what altitude it's grown at actually. But yeah, this one I think should be pretty damn nice. So an 11% Imperial Coffee Stout, this one, with Kenyan Zawadi Peaberry coffee, brewed by Puhäste in Tartu in Estonia in collaboration with Kokomo Coffee Roasters from Tallinn, the capital city. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. And my first Estonian beer in quite a little while actually, so fingers crossed this is a good one. Oh, and that does look damn good actually. This I think will be pretty nice. Very, very curious to see whether this is a more kind of floral or aromatic or earthy coffee. I really am not sure what to expect from this one. You do get some really, really interesting things. There you can see the Kokomo symbol on the back there. But yeah, I do need to try the Tumeaine from these guys at some point. It would be cool to try the original Tumeaine, because I know they've got various different barrel-aged versions of this, and yeah, I think that one could be pretty interesting. I think this is one that they've made. This is one of the beers that they've used in the Silver series, their barrel aging series as well. They've used Trinity and Black, which you've seen me review on the channel, and a few of the other ones. But like I say, you will see a few of the the Silver Series beers appear on the channel over the next little while. But yeah, that's one that I will need to try and get a hold of. It's the original Tumeaine, actually. But these guys have got some very, very interesting beers, as I said. You know, probably it's a lot of people are more familiar with the darker things, but they also do some very, very nice IPAs and stuff like that as well. So pretty much pick a style of beer that you like, and if you see something, see an example of that style from Pühaste, you are going to get a good quality beer out of it. Aroma, very, very talented brewer and very highly regarded in Estonia. Of course, they've got a great craft beer scene over there these days. The Estonian craft beers are very high quality in my experience. But yeah, as you can see and as you would expect from an Imperial Stout, this one has poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. You can see when we poured this beer, it had about a quarter finger of a frothy, I would say very, very kind of dark tan head, but that's faded away to just be a very kind of thin, foamy, wispy layer, and it's left a nice kind of just a fluffy ring around the edge of the glass there, but it certainly looks very, very nice. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. There's a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of that head there, but I mean overall it does look pretty damn nice actually. It looks like a very, very interesting beer, this one. It looks as pretty much as you would expect from a stout, especially an Imperial Coffee Stout. So yeah, nothing too surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. So let's have a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Very, very curious about that. Ooh, that smells very, very nice, I have to say. So straight away with this one, you are going to notice that big kind of roasty toasty coffee underline of this beer. It comes across as ridiculously smooth actually. The aroma that comes out of this beer is just absolutely lovely, and you know, I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised when it comes to Puhäste with this. These guys, they know what they're doing in this style. So yeah, so for me, straight away with this beer, you get that lovely big kind of just coffee smoothness out of this beer, and we'll focus on the coffee bean first, and the whole description that you're going to get now, that is just focused on the coffee bean. So for me, this Kenyan Zawadi bean, it has a very, very smooth roast to it. There is a wee touch of floral aromaticity to it, and yeah, it just comes across as ridiculously smooth. That's the first thing that I get out of this one. It's almost yeah, to me, it's a very, very smooth kind of, lovely smooth kind of earthy kind of coffee that you get out of this one. The roast comes across just absolutely beautifully. There is a wee bit of a kind of floral aromaticity to the beer, and just a very light touch of a kind of sort of blackcurranty, red fruity sort of thing. So that's really interesting, this one. This is definitely a lovely big smooth coffee variety that you get in this one. Sometimes they can be very citrusy and almost you can feel the aromaticity out of them as well in the aroma. And for me, you can get a little bit of that, but the overwhelming thing with this pea berry, this Kenyan pea berry, the Zawadi, is that it comes across as very, very smooth, and it's almost like the whole coffee bean is just adding another layer of depth, a kind of subtlety to the beer. So I love how this coffee goes together. And I remember I forget which one of the ones was it, the Key or the Sidamo Dimtu. One of those I think was Ethiopian and one of them was Kenyan. The ones that I had from Dugas Brewery in Gothenburg, they were quite similar to that. They had a lovely smooth, earthy kind of roast to them, which was great. but then they had other little complexities. So for me, the coffee bean that comes out of this is lovely and smooth and earthy. It's just got a little bit of floral aromaticity to it, and you're also getting some of these nice kind of more red leaning fruity notes to it, like a little bit of a figgy note, a little bit of an almost blackberry, blackcurranty sort of thing. So that's really, really interesting actually, and that's kind of sitting forming the backbone of the beer. Yeah, it's very nice. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of this Imperial Stout, by the way, is absolutely lovely. It comes across as ridiculously smooth as well. That's the other thing with this one. So yeah, that's the coffee bean described. Let's kind of focus on the other parts of the aroma just now. So for me, this beer, there's a good little bit of a kind of chocolatey character to this one, I think. I would say that this is somewhere between, you know, like a 50 sort of 60% cocoa chocolate to it. There's a little bit of that more darker chocolate to it, but at the same time it's got a little bit more of a kind of milky chocolate element to it as well. I'm getting some nice kind of brown sugary elements to this beer as well, like a nice, it's got a bit of a caramelly sweetness to it, but at the same time there's a little bit of that more toasted kind of brown sugary edge to the beer as well. So yeah, there's a few woody elements. I do get a little bit of woodiness and almost a little bit of leatheriness out of this beer too. Yeah, I do have to say I find the aroma in this one a little bit more reserved compared to some of the other Puhäste beers that I've come across before. But it's one of these ones where the aroma is a lot more kind of subtle, I think. So the woodiness and the kind of almost slight leatheriness that this beer has is, you know, it really adds a real depth to the whole character of the beer, which is really interesting. So I really like that aspect of this one. So take a little bit of time and just enjoy that. As I've told you before, I'm a bit of a malt head, being Scottish, of course. The Scottish sweet tooth is Chris Pilkington from Puhäste. So you get a lot of lovely kind of sweetness out of this beer. So yeah, you can pick up some elements of a roasty toasty black malt in this one, but the coffee I think really does a lot to kind of smoothen the thing out. Some nice kind of milky chocolate, 50 sort of 60% cocoa, nice little bit of a brown sugary note in there, sweet caramel, but at the same time a little bit toasted, and some kind of woody and some kind of woody sort of leathery elements coming out of it too. So it's got a really nice kind of backbone to it, this beer actually. I really like how that goes together. On the hoppy side of things then, I think we've covered the coffee and the malty side of this beer. There's a little bit of earthiness in there, which is very, very nice. You've also got a nice little bit of a kind of, there is a little touch of a floral aromaticity to this one, but I think the earthiness kind of shines through a bit more. The floral aromaticity sits back a little bit. You do get a wee touch of grassiness out of this beer as well, which is quite nice, but I think those, again, they take a bit of a back seat in comparison to the more malty side of the beer. You do, of course, get a little bit of a kind of red fruity side of this beer as well. So there's a wee bit of a kind of figgy note to it, maybe a little touch of that sharper red fruity raisin, and you've also got a wee bit of a kind of blackcurranty. Yeah, you've also got a nice little bit of a kind of blackcurranty, blackberry type note out of this one. I'd be curious to know what hop they would have used in this, whether they would have used like one of the American ones, or whether it would be a, like, you know, Northern Brewer from Germany or something like that. It's got a wee bit of a kind of, there is the fruitiness you get out of this one's a little bit more American, but some of the kind of green notes are a little bit more like Northern Brewer, which is quite a popular hop to use in German Doppelbocks and stuff like this. But yeah, lovely, lovely aroma this one. So take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of that beer before you get stuck into it. But we're going to have a taste of this one now and see how we get on. So yeah, this one is the Tumeaine, to give it its full name, the Tumeaine Kenya, which is an Imperial Coffee Stout coming in at 11% ABV, brewed in collaboration with Kokomo Coffee Roasters from Tallinn in the capital city in Estonia. An Imperial Coffee Stout, 11% ABV, using the Kenyan Zawadi Peabody variety, or pea berry variety, my apologies. Let's get stuck into this one. Really curious about this beer, and once again, thank you to Aero for making this review possible. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Oh yeah, I'm going to say once again, this is another Lovely, lovely beer from Pühaste. The aroma in this beer is beautiful. As I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy that before you get stuck into it. But the one thing that's going to blow you away with this is just how kind of big and this beer's got a hell of a kick to it when you first take it in. The impact of this beer is absolutely lovely. The aroma doesn't really do it justice. It's the flavour profile that you really need to focus on with this. Lovely, lovely beer. I'm going to say already, straight away, massive thumbs up to Puhäste Pruulikoda once again for this. These guys are very, very capable in the Imperial Stout category, as I've told you before, and this is just another very, very fine example of that. So yeah, if you enjoy an Imperial Stout, you certainly can't go wrong with Puhäste Pruulikoda, let me tell you that. So yeah, where to start with this beer then? So yeah, straight away with this beer you can feel that nice kind of coffee bean forming at the backbone of this beer. The other thing you're going to notice on this one, you've got that nice roasty toasty black malty quality to this one, which is very likely, I think, to be Special B. There is something that's kind of along the same lines of like Nerd Brewing from Malmö in Skåne here in the very south of Sweden. There is something a little bit familiar about this one, so a nice roasty toasty black malt character from this one, which I think is very good. You can really feel that kind of forming the backbone of the beer, and it's almost as if the coffee kind of sits on top of that and just smoothens it out. Like I said, with this Zawadi coffee variety, the coffee bean, I think, it sits on that middle third of your palate and the back third of your palate. It just smoothens the whole of that roasty kind of black malt backbone out. In the middle third of your palate, underneath, you can get that roasty toasty black malt, and it spreads out a little bit more towards the back third of your palate, and you can feel it's just a little bit more roasty and toasty and kind of hard on that back third of the tongue there, and the coffee beans just kind of sit on top of that and smoothen the whole thing out, which is very, very nice. But the coffee bean, as I say, there's a little bit of a more kind of roasty toastiness to it. It does have that. It's a little bit harsher, I think, in its roasty toasty qualities than it comes across as being in the aroma. But this whole beer for me is far richer in the flavour than you might expect from the aroma. But you know, if you know this brewery, as I say, that's not such a surprise. But yeah. As I said with this one, there is a little bit of a kind of floral aromaticity to the coffee bean as well, and you start to get that out of it the further you kind of come forward on the palate. You get more of the floral elements of the coffee. Yeah, and it's got this really, as I say, you can feel the kind of red fruitiness further forward in that middle third of your tongue as well from the coffee bean as well. So like I say, nice, the roastiness of the coffee, I think, is a little bit stronger in the flavour. You do get some of that nice kind of floral aromaticity. You can feel, it's not right to call it astringent, I don't think, but you can feel some of the kind of floral aromatic, you know, it's just coming off the top of the tongue there. And then, as I say, you get that kind of red, fruity character. It's almost got a wee bit of a kind of citrusy zest in some ways to it as well, which I wasn't picking up so much in the aroma. You really get all of that just from the coffee bean. And like I said, all we've talked about so far with this beer is that roasty kind of backbone that the beer has. I do suspect a little bit of black malt, maybe Special B to this one. It comes across as being quite familiar, Special B I want to say. And then you've got that nice kind of coffee bean note just kind of sitting on top of that, which is very, very nice. The other thing that you're going to notice in the base layer of this beer is that if you go to the front corners of the palate, then move kind of diagonally back, you will get a few kind of woody sort of undertones to the beer as well. There's maybe a wee tiny touch of a leathery quality that comes out of this one as well, but I'm more tempted to say it's kind of woody, and that is just the backbone of the beer that we've covered so far. So let's look at the other elements that are at play here with this one. But as I say, this is another awesome beer from Puhäste Pruulikoda, and I'm certainly not surprised at what we've got going on with this one. And yeah, it does have a real slickness to it as well, which is very, very nice. So yeah, for me, the coffee bean, you can feel that this beer, it does get a little, this one for me, there is a slight thickness in the back third of the palate there, and you do get more of the kind of roasty, earthy elements of the coffee coming out of this one. But as you move further forward, you can feel it does feel a little bit thicker on that back third of the tongue, and then as you move into the middle third of your palate, the thickness just goes down a little bit, and then on top of that nice coffee bean, that's where you get the kind of chocolatey part coming out of this beer. And as I said, it does have a little bit of it's about a 60% cocoa that you're getting out of this one. There are a few elements of kind of milky chocolate in there, but you do get some kind of more dark chocolatey elements to this beer as well. And sitting on top of that chocolate, that's where you get the nice brown sugars in this one, and it comes across as being, you know, a sort of highly caramelized, almost treacly molasses sort of thing out of this one. It's a very, very rich thing. As I've told you when it comes to these big imperial stouts before, it's all about the length of the boil. So the longer that you boil these beers, the more caramelized the sugars are going to become. And that's, you know, that's what it's all about with these beers. It's all the length of the boil, and the longer that happens, the thicker it goes, and then the more it kind of affects your mouthfeel actually, which is a big thing with these kind of big imperial stouts. So yeah, just beware of that. This one I think is a very, very long boil imperial stout. You can kind of tell that from the colour of the beer as well. The longer you boil the beer, the darker the colour tends to go, and the more caramelised you get the sugars. But this one's got a real kind of almost silky, big oily type vibe to it, which I think is great. It really, really suits the rest of the beer. And the thing is, the further you go into the aftertaste with this one, the more that big coffee bean smoothness just pushes its way out of the beer, and you start to get the more earthy and sort of, I think the aromaticity of the coffee bean comes out in this one a little bit more as well. But I think in terms of coffee stouts, it's the smoothness and the sweetness and the silkiness of this one that really kind of shine through. So yeah, another very, very solid beer, this one. And I think I would maybe put this on the same level as the Key and the Sidamo Dimtu that I had from Dugas Brewery as well. And for me, that's quite a big thing, because those were the coffee stouts that really kick-started my whole love of this sub-style, if you like. But you know, as I say, Puhäste, very, very capable brewery in my experience. So I'm not surprised to have found such a high quality beer from these guys. They know what they're doing when it comes to the imperial stouts. That's well established. So yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of things with this beer then. That's lovely, it really is. So yeah, back corners of the palate, you've got a little touch of earthiness there. Just kind of what you'd expect. And as you move further forward, you can feel it does become a little bit herbal, but then as you reach the front corners of the palate, that earthiness just spreads and spreads and spreads. It gets a little touch kind of floral on the front corners of the palate. Then you go round the very front curve of the tongue, and it's a little bit lighter and more grassy then. And on that front third of the palate, you've got that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters come out of the beer, and it's just lovely how that goes together. The hoppy side of this beer, it's got a bit of bitterness to it, this one, both from the coffee, what I suspect is special bee malt, and the hops, but the bitterness I think complements everything else that's going on. But on the fruity side of things then, let's focus on that. The hoppy side of the beer, the green side of the hops for me, kind of leaning towards the earthy side of things, a little bit of a grassy note as we said, but the fruity side of this beer I think has a real little bit of complexity to it, which is great. So yeah, when you first take this beer in, it has a real juiciness to it, which is really quite nice. You do get a little bit of that kind of raisiny, almost kind of plummy type quality to this beer. That comes in, and it just really is lovely, that big kind of, that red fruity note that you have. But then as you move, you'll find that when you take it in, it comes in a little bit sharp, but then it just smoothens out across that front little tip of your tongue. So yeah, then you start to get those really nice kind of, on that front third of your palate, if you go towards the back of it, you do start to get those more juicy, raisiny, kind of plummy notes, and then as you move further forward on that front third of your tongue, you'll get a few kind of figgy notes out of the beer. Then on the very tip of the palate, that's when you get those more kind of oily, blackcurranty, blackberry kind of flavours in this beer. And as you go further and further into the aftertaste with this one, it's those flavours that really become more kind of prominent in the aftertaste. You can feel underneath on that front third of your palate, there is a bit of that roasty toasty note coming out from the beer, and it's almost like a kind of well-fired cake edge, and on that border between the front third and the middle third of your palate, it is like a really roasty toasty kind of cakey edge. that the beer has actually, and I think that suits it very, very well. It kind of builds a good bridge between the fruits and the more kind of coffee edge of the beer as well. So yeah, it's a lovely beer, this one overall. I love the big oily fruitiness that this beer has. It suits everything else that that goes on with this beer. So yeah, let's leave it at that for the flavour side of things. I think we've kind of described everything very much in depth. So mouthfeel then. As I said with this beer, this is definitely a full-bodied beer for me. The carbonation is very, very smooth. I would describe the mouthfeel overall as being very kind of silky, very kind of oily, and it's got a real degree of slickness to it, this one actually. So this is one of these beers where the mouthfeel just suits everything that goes on in this beer. So the malty and kind of adjuncty side of the beer, again, I would describe this as being very slick. It's got a nice kind of smoothness to it. There's a little bit of a roasty, toasty backbone, which I think is really nice, and you do get a kind of sweet layer sitting on top of it. Like I said, the kind of big treacly molasses, brown sugars in this one, and the kind of chocolatey backbone that it has, as we said, roasty black malt, coffee smoothness there, then the chocolate, and then the brown sugar sitting on top of that, treacle molasses in the middle of the tongue, and as you move further out, the brown sugars develop more of a kind of sweet caramel. We've said all of that, so nice balance in the malty side of the beer. Then on the bitterness side of things, and remember the hops do contribute a little bit to that, but the adjunct and the hops are all contributing to this nice bitterness that the beer has. This one, it tells you on the bottle it's about 60. I probably would have guessed it was a bit less than that. I think I would have thought this beer was maybe around 50 or something like that, because of the smoothness that it has and the slickness that it has. But yeah, the malt base really balanced between the smoothness and the toastiness of the coffee and the nice kind of sweet brown sugary notes, and also the other subtleties that are going on. And as I said, this beer's got a really nice fruity character to it as well. A little bit sharper in the beginning, but then it really smoothens out and gives you a real kind of juicy depth to the beer, which I think is very, very nice. So yeah, this is a lovely, lovely beer, this one. Another excellent beer from Puhäste Pruulikoda. If you're into Imperial Coffee Stouts, this one will certainly not let you down. So yeah, I think that's a good place to kind of round off this review then. Another awesome, awesome beer from Pühaste Pruulikoda in Tartu in Estonia. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. I think this has turned out to be a very, very nice one. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Pühaste Pruulikoda as well. Do let me know some other Estonian Imperial Coffee Stouts that we should be having a look at, because as I say, Estonia, a very capable beer country these days. And this is a style of beer that I always enjoy reviewing. I'm not surprised that I got something of such high quality from Pühaste. This is a brewery that I would always recommend when talking about Estonian beers. So yeah, this was great. And I need to review a few more beers, I think, with the Zawadi coffee bean variety in it, because this has turned out to be very nice. The smoothness of the earthiness and the kind of aromatic and the aromatic qualities and the fruity qualities that it has are also very nice. As you go further into the aftertaste, you get more, the real smoothness of that coffee variety just lingers in this one. But yeah, awesome, awesome beer this. So thumbs up to Eero and the guys at Pühaste once again for this. So yeah, this one was the Tumeaine Kenya, an 11% Imperial Coffee Stout from Pühaste Pruulikoda in Tartu, Estonia, brewed in collaboration with the Kokomo Coffee Distillery from Tallinn, the capital city. I've really enjoyed reviewing this one. It's been nice to do another Estonian beer for you after quite a while, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this one as well. So let's leave it at that for this one. Thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys very soon. Until the next time, Slanja, Skål, Terviseks, and make sure you check out Pühaste Pruulikoda in Tartu in Estonia. Cheers.